Klaus Larres is a professor of history and international affairs over at the University of North Carolina. Klaus, always good to have you on the show. So there's this popular analogy out there that's being talked about, more about between Russia's actions vis-a-vis Ukraine and China's approach to Taiwan. Do you think that this is a fair one?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a totally different situation. And China is not doing anything about Taiwan right now. It has also been suggested that the Chinese would use the opportunity of instability in Eastern Europe, of American distraction, to launch an assault on Taiwan, let's say. I don't think that is the case at all. But what the Chinese are doing is, of course, to watch very carefully how the Western world, how the United States is reacting to the Ukraine crisis. What sort of sanctions they are imposing, whether military force will be employed, whether the Ukrainians will be given American and NATO defense missile systems, airplanes, and so on. That will all be carefully observed in Beijing. But I don't think that the parallel between Ukraine and Taiwan is a direct one.
Do you think that China's leadership is sort of taking notes from Russia's actions in Ukraine? And that, I mean, sort of rethinking sort of the possible risks associated with escalation. I mean, they must be very wary of the sweeping economic sanctions sort of that have been levied by the international community.
Absolutely. I'm sure, there will be an awful lot of military strategies in Beijing who will take very careful note and make precise recommendations to the leadership what can be expected if there should be a military takeover of Taiwan. However, China is not happy with the war. I don't think they like instability. They don't want Putin to be involved in a major war, because Putin is, of course, a close ally of China's, and China finds itself in the kind of middle. It doesn't support the war, but it doesn't want to drop Putin either. So it is assuming a semi-neutral position. We're still coming down on the fence so far in support of Putin, but it has abstained from two UN security resolutions in the Security Council and in the General Assembly, and that indicates that China is not happy with what is happening. And we also don't know whether Putin actually told Xi Jinping at their meeting on the 4th of February, at the opening day of the Olympics, whether he would or whether he had the intention to invade Ukraine. From all what we know is that perhaps the Chinese expected a Russian move into eastern Ukraine, but not a full invasion of the whole of Ukraine. And the mess we are seeing now, the carnage, the destabilization of the entire European security structure, also very much economic dislocation, economic instability worldwide almost, that is not what the Chinese want. And they will certainly observe the situation very, very carefully, including the sanctions which the Western world has imposed on Putin, which are probably going to continue. There will be even more severe sanctions on Russia, and all that will not create a more stable world at all. And I think perhaps that is the reason why the Chinese, like also, of course, the Turkish government, have suggested that they would like to mediate in the conflict to bring it to an end. Whether the Chinese would be ideal mediators, I don't know, but perhaps they are the only ones who can actually tell Putin to stop the war, because they have a lot of economic leeway over Putin.
You were telling that anecdote about Xi Jinping and Putin meeting. I don't think anybody, including Xi Jinping, actually knows what President Putin is actually thinking. All right, let's talk about sort of the connection between Ukraine and Taiwan. I mean, there is no formal military alliance between the United States and Taiwan, but I think sort of Beijing and the Communist Party leadership must think that Taiwan has the resolute support of the world's strongest military. This is not the case in Ukraine, and Joe Biden has actually made it very clear that there's going to be no troops on the ground.
That is very true. And of course, it is very questionable whether there would be American troops on the ground in Taiwan. There would probably be air support if there was an invasion of Taiwan. But we should also consider that for the Chinese, Taiwan is part of their homeland. They regard it as part of China, while, of course, Ukraine is a separate independent country. And the Chinese have always said that the territorial integrity and sovereignty of countries should be observe. And that is the reason why China is in such a dilemma, why they are kind of half-heartedly supporting Putin, but at the same time, they're also supporting Ukraine. And Ukraine is a close economic partner of China, and Russia is a close economic partner of China. So it's quite a dilemma for the Chinese. And I think the Chinese themselves don't draw a parallel between Ukraine, an independent sovereign country, and Taiwan, which they regard as part of China, as part of their homeland.
All right. Klaus Larres, pleasure talking to you. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for the analysis. Thank